No, I had to put him in his kennel. He was getting a little too excited.
John isn't migrating from place to place.
Now we get that. It's the one
John
man
migration.
caravan. The one man caravan from Windows.
And now we're live.
Yeah.
House tour, sure.
Oh, look at that kitty. Hang on, let me put you on. There we go. Oh my goodness.
This is the newest edition.
Coming down. They're staging a revolt against you now.
The coup de cat.
These fucking cats, they're taking over the internet. This is a people show. This isn't a cat show.
Yeah, well, Steve, you have to understand that the cat videos had to catch up with us sooner or later, and I think the event has arrived.
Yeah,
I've got Spooky sitting right here next to me, behaving himself for the moment.
Yeah. My cat is in the other room. Last I saw her, she was napping on top of my camera bag, which for some reason is her new favorite spot. I have no idea why.
Because you keep on using it.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, make some videos now, motherfucker. Come on, I dare you.
It smells like you. So.
Yeah, and I guess now it smells like her. So, which I think she likes
it's
better.
full of expensive things she can break.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Ashley says, "Are you sure it's okay for her to lay on that like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's probably okay." She's spread out over a large enough surface area. I think it's not going to.
You're fat.
No, I'm saying my camera bag is large enough. I would never call her fat. I would call her chonky. I believe that is the proper terminology.
I'm not familiar with that one. I know the 6 stages of fatness, according to Gabriel Iglesias: big, healthy, chubby, fluffy. Damn! And then the 6th one, oh hell no!
Yeah, I think I've
Actually, the last category is my 600-pound life.
They're making a show about it.
Hell no!
Well, thankfully, I'm shy of that. Not by a lot.
By a considerable degree, I hope, Joe.
Not as considerable as one would hope. But, working on it.
So how is everybody? How is everybody navigating the increasingly hot hellstorm that is becoming civilization?
It's so long as I don't think about politics, I guess I'm fine, but...
No.
Good luck with that.
I have 3 cats and a dog. I'm good.
Yeah. Steve, I was just telling the guys before you came in, I got sort of a wake-up call myself. My very best friend, who is the guy I've been palling around with high-end stereo for a while, he and I have a mutual friend who not only lives in Pittsburgh, is not only Jewish, that's her synagogue.
Oh my God, is she okay?
And my man gave her a shout as soon as he knew what was going on, and thankfully she did get back to him. So yeah, she's
That's
okay.
Oh,
but I mean, this is getting beyond the freaking pale.
Yeah,
Well, I posted last night. I said, when people tell you to compromise with people that threaten you, that's not compromise.
Yeah.
That's surrender.
That's appeasement. And
exactly.
And when people tell you to compromise with those that commit violence against you, that's not compromise. That's capitulation.
Exactly.
People that tell you this are not neutral. They're complicit.
Exactly. They don't want. They're not saying let's both move toward a middle. They're saying you need to move toward me.
Right.
They're not going to move. Yeah, they're not going to move.
One of my recently discovered cousins posted, "Oh well, we just have to be nice to one another and learn to respect one another." I'm like, I'm fine with that, but the people that are actually actively trying to harm me and people that I know and people like me, they're not interested in that at all.
Yeah,
you're trying to coexist with people who don't want to coexist. They want to dominate. In fact, they want to dominate to the point where everybody else out of the pool.
Yeah, and they want to take advantage of that sort of community spirit that they see in other people. Because they know that there are a lot of people who feel like, oh, if only we could all just get along, and they're very well-intentioned people, but they totally misunderstand what they're up against, and they don't realize that it's the same. Like Obama did that for 8 years. He kept making room for the Republicans to work with him, and they steamrolled him every single time.
Right.
And at a certain point, you just have to think, they don't want to be your friend. They're just pulling your chain to get you to do what they want you to do.
Right.
They're not interested in
little brat.
Yeah,
they're basically, they have declared war on us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And whether we acknowledge it or not doesn't change the fact that they have declared war on us.
Yeah. There was Caitlin Burns, who is a journalist I follow on Twitter, who is really great, tweeted, I think she just tweeted it this morning. She said, while well-intentioned liberals were wringing their hands over whether or not it was okay to punch Nazis, the Nazis have moved on to killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And Steve gets it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead, please.
On Facebook, I mentioned something about you can be anti-Nazi without being anti-Semitism, and someone was like, "Are the Jews really all that oppressed?" I'm just like,
Oh God!
I know we've all encountered that anti-Nazi, but not necessarily pro-Jew sort of mindset that's in the left.
Oh, definitely. Well, anti-Semitism. There's a reason why they call anti-Semitism the mother hate. Because I mean, it spreads. You find it in places you would. Stereotypically you would not expect to find it.
And it's been around forever.
Yeah.
You can allege if the whole.
Yeah.
Well, you could allege that if the whole thing with the Egypt and the Israelites had actually happened, they started it.
I mean, it's and you're right, Steve. There's in a lot of subtle ways. Like anytime when people start talking about the media and who's behind the media, they're talking about Jews. It's a thinly veiled anti-Semitic comment is what they're making.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot. Yeah, globalists. Yeah, globalists is
the World Bank,
bankers, bank, just anything bank related, honestly.
And the thing that makes it. The thing that makes it difficult is that the dog whistles have become so ingrained in the way we talk about things that I think I honestly believe, and this isn't an excuse, but a lot of the people who say those things don't even consciously realize that they're pushing anti-Semitic narratives. But then when you point that out to them and say, well, you probably shouldn't say that because you're just sort of furthering a narrative that was started by some really awful people. A lot of times they get
terrible person.
They get defensive about it instead of saying, oh shit, thanks for telling me.
I know all the best Jews.
Well, I had pointed out, again, and along with what we were saying, I reached a point now where, we're talking about the appeasers.
Yeah.
I will not countenance anybody with the both sides of the same crap. I just shut the fuck up.
Very good point. If you follow Matthew Dowd at all, I caught this on this morning. And let me pull this up so I can tell you exactly what he said, because I thought it was he tweeted something like 4 days ago. There we go. And he said, the media has an obligation not to both sides of this moment of fomenting violence and hate. The president of the United States is pushing exactly the wrong message to Americans, and white nationalist terrorism is at an all-time high.
Exactly.
And if I may make a further point, it's worse than that, because one of the panelists on This Week said, this doesn't end with Trump. And that's I think it's a critical point to make, that even after Trump leaves office, the worms have come out of the woodwork, and I don't think they're going back in easy, if at all. So we've got ourselves the situation's just gotten a whole lot worse.
And just to add on to something Steve said a little bit ago, about how it's ingrained. Some of this, the anti-globalist, anti-banker thing is even on our side of the political fence.
Yeah, definitely.
Because anti-Semitism knows no, it's maybe more on one side than the other, but it's not absent on our side.
Absolutely.
I think there's a matter of degree, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Well, which is what I was trying to explain to some. I've run into a lot of people that are our nominally our side of the political fence, who are basically saying, they'll point to some bad thing, and I'm like, but it's a matter. It is very much a matter of degree. You can say, okay, the Democrats are too corporate. Sure, I'm with you there, but if you want, if you look at the environment, women's rights, minority rights, immigrant rights, worker rights, the environment, just the environment. To say that they're the same is you're either lying to yourself or you're lying to us.
Also, Garrett said last night on the stream he did with Chris Yowski, Thoughtline, and Gwendolyn Fear, it was an excellent stream, is that the Republicans are actively trying to be anti-democratic. And the Democrats are not that. They're definitely not that. So, yeah, that I agree with you, Joe.
Only one side has tried to erase my identity from existence.
Yes.
So, I mean...
And not even been cute about it. Just come right out and said,
they want sexuality to be an on-off switch. And now, it's a piddly point by comparison with some of this other stuff. But now they're claiming to support pre-existing conditions with the Affordable Care Act. I mean, what a load of horse manure!
Which they just voted against like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
and they actively have a court case against it going on right now.
Which I believe that was the thing that finally got Obama to actually call them liars and to use that word. I saw this. He's been giving stump speeches around in like battleground states the last couple of days, and he did one. I think it sounded like he gave basically the same speech in Michigan today, but a couple of days ago he did it in Wisconsin, and he pointed out, that they spent 8 years trying to undo healthcare reform, and now, like 2 weeks before the election, all of a sudden, hey, we're going to protect you with protection against pre-existing conditions. It's like, well, no, you're not. You're just making that up. Like that has no basis in fact at all.
Because they know so many people start paying attention only now. They haven't.
Yeah. Well,
political masturbation.
Yeah. Oh, these fucking undecided voters. How can you every 2 years everybody starts paying attention to the undecided voters like a week before the election, and I always think, what the fuck does it take to make you have to make a decision? Yeah. Why are we turning to you guys every year that there's an election? The undecided.
I was canvassing for Planned Parenthood like last week or something like that on the 21st, on Sunday, and one of the people I met does not talk politics and didn't want to talk politics. So what I did, just like, okay, and just walk away and move to the next house. Right. That's what we should all do. Just move on. If someone's excited, just move on.
I'm not going to sit here and play with you. Like, because go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say, like, so it was something. I think Joe, you brought it up last time, or either last time or time before last, when we were talking about how if we could get all of the people who are sort of left-leaning on at least mostly on the same page to show up and vote for things, that we would have a majority in everything. And so we don't. The amount of attention paid to either flipping Republicans or reaching out to undecided voters, to me, is just a waste of time. You find people who mostly already agree with you, and you just convince them that they have to show up.
Right.
Like
also punch Nazis.
Well, here's the thing too. To Alice's point, and I don't know what your identity is, Alice. So I won't.
I'm a trans woman.
Okay, trans woman. Okay, perfect. So I was, and this is what bothers me when I'm talking to people that are supposedly on my side of the political fence. People that, both sides are equally bad and all this kind of bullshit. I'm like, okay, find me one Democratic person either in office or running for office that would try to eliminate Alice's gender identity. Yeah. That doesn't say they're necessarily all advocates or all understand it or all that kind of stuff, but some that are actively trying to hurt Alice. Find me one. And so I said so I keep saying to these people, you are full of shit, because if you're truly this lefty person that you claim you are, if you don't care about trans rights and any LGBT rights, and you don't care about women's rights and the environment and all these kind of things, on what basis are you on the left?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I actually stopped talking to them too, because they are full of shit. They are recalcitrant people. Basically what it is they're like, they're basically economic neo-communists, and they don't give a fuck about anything else at all. They're basically anti-capitalist
but that's it.
And that's it. And they don't care about any of the other core leftist values whatsoever. And so, and especially I've noticed it, I was late, especially because even women who might have been in that category are starting to realize that they're in peril. So the ones that weren't awake are waking up. but it's generally, and no, I mean, you guys are all awesome, but it's mostly cishet white male.
White guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah. It's true.
The people with the least at stake in the whole equation.
Yeah, and
those are my coworkers who say, I don't understand what's the problem with Trump, or some of my peers that say, I don't understand the problems with Trump. And so like, where do I even begin? But they don't.
Well,
when
they tried
they don't
to fire me on Twitter. So.
Yeah, they're the ones with the power. They're the ones with the privilege. They're the ones who are de facto holding the keys and holding the controls.
Yeah.
Steve,
and don't understand systematic oppression either. That it's difficult to explain that to them as well.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Lauren?
My favorite Edward R. Murrow quote. I'm a quote monger, as you probably know.
Yeah.
And you've seen it all through the comments I leave all the time. What do you suppose my favorite Edward R. Murrow quote as it comes to this is?
Oh, you're going to have to tell me. I can't think of that.
I've searched my conscience, and I can't for the life of me find any justification for this. And I simply cannot accept that there are, on every story, two equal and logical sides to an argument.
Yeah.
Thing.
Exactly.
Right. Because this isn't a matter of, oh, well, we're arguing over the line of, what should the government do and what should the government not do, and it's not about tax rates and about who you tax or how we spend the money. This is who actually gets rights and who doesn't.
Yeah. That's the thing that
breathe the air and drink the water. And not wipe out every species that exists.
There's a lot of equivocating, from people on that side who are trying to pull the, we just have to agree to disagree and we have to be civil and we have to have debates. And we're not arguing over which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars, right? If you cut people out of your life for
need to die.
Yeah.
Besides, you know what Babylon 5 means.
There's always contrarians like Joe who are like Babylon 5. Because they won't pick a side and they ruin it for everybody. No, it's like if it's a disagreement, or even if it's a political thing, like you were saying about taxes, like if you sincerely believe that the best thing to do is to cut taxes for billionaires, and I believe that the best thing to do is to raise their taxes and cut taxes for poor people, or that's a disagreement that we can argue about. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a horrible person. You might just sincerely think that's the best thing to do for everybody's best interests. But if your side is, well, we need to shrink the number of people who are covered by federal civil rights protections instead of expand it,
or healthcare,
or healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we can't have that conversation. If you think that if the argument is, this guy over here with the swastika on his arm, let's hear from him. I'm sorry, we're not going to have that conversation. At least you're not going to have it with me.
Yeah. Except that it's gotten even worse than that, Steve. It's to the point where it's, they're going my way or the highway. Yeah. And the highway might as well be, the cliff off of which all the lemmings go.
Yeah. The sad part about with the whole cishet white male thing, because again, I don't like to have to bring it up because I'm not trying to assault all cishet white males. Although I'm sure they really feel beset upon, and it's like, welcome to my world, motherfucker. But the thing about it is that they're not going to do well either.
Right.
They may not be hurt as badly, but they're not like they're going to be sitting pretty either.
Well, there's some people who are just always happier when somebody's under them, even if they're only second from the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Class oppression is still a big thing.
The way I've heard it put best is I can't convince them that they should care about people. To me, that is the most important thing about any political position, any ideology, whatever, is that are you at least treating people equally and well? And who wants to live this life if they're living in shitty poverty and oppression and all that stuff? But, they just like, I got mine.
Well, one friend of mine who he's generally on the left. He voted for Obama twice, but he hated Hillary Clinton for reasons he couldn't really enumerate. So he voted for Trump. He said he wouldn't vote for him again. But part of it is he's like, I'm looking at the tax thing and I think I did okay. I'm like, yeah, but see, that's the problem is that you basically only give it, so when you only care about yourself, there, and again, there's other issues. I mean, having a trade war with China, long term, not good for you, buddy. Yeah. And then he doesn't understand why, like, one of his black friends, like his wife, his guy's wife, won't talk to him anymore. It's like, well, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. It's short-sighted.
Same thing in my family.
Never mind the fact that the personal tax cuts aren't going to hang in. The corporate tax cuts are going to hang in. And while I've got the floor, if a free society can't help the many which are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. And that's John Kennedy.
Yep. And as far as those corporate tax cuts, they did nothing for small business. As a small business owner, all that happened. So I got nothing on the business side and personal side. Living in New Jersey with high property taxes, I got fucked because basically that $10,000 limit for married couple. My property taxes are $8,800. So that means I don't get to deduct hardly any of my mortgage interest, none of my state taxes. So it's actually gonna mean about $7,000 more in taxes for me. So, so even if I was just being strictly on my own selfish self-interest, Trump fucked me. So,
Joe, I have to ask a serious question. Could you afford to move?
But where would I go? That's the thing.
Upstate New York.
What's that? Well, the property taxes in New York are lower, but the state taxes are higher. So, it's kind of a wash. The income taxes are I'd pay like double the income tax in New York State, so it's a kind of a wash because that's the thing, because services cost money, and we can pretend they don't. And if you go to the states where taxes are low, one, they have a lot of hidden taxes. So like Texas doesn't have an income tax, but for businesses there's an inventory tax. So forget punishing the winners, you punish the losers. If you made a bunch of stuff and you didn't sell it all, you can get taxed in the same equipment over and over and over and over again. And so I know somebody who's a big, right-wing guy who is a game manufacturer, and here he is living. He's like, oh, we got low taxes. No, you don't, Steve. His name is Steve. Also, you're getting fucked for the stuff you're getting taxed on the stuff you didn't sell. How does that make any sense at all? And they also, states like this tend to have very little services. Do you remember Schizophrenic Queen?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. I remember. When she was living in Kansas, she didn't qualify, even though she had basically her income was basically disability insurance, the SSI. She didn't qualify for Medicaid, and so she needed medical services that she couldn't get. Now, if she lived in New Jersey with the exact same income, she would have been eligible for a ton of things. Well, do people in Kansas need less? I don't think so.
Yeah. No, they need even more. They're in Kansas, for God's sake.
Well, fucking A, yeah.
We should give them something just for having to live there. Should be like a Midwest stipend. Here, you have to live in the Midwest. This is for you. We're really sorry.
Just a lot of people just need a lot more things in general because, like I've already mentioned, I know like 5 people that like are either friends of mine or just mutuals, just people I know of that like put out like a GoFundMe or are basically eBaying online for either like their transition or for like Electric Mayhem 87 Ashley to like get on her feet and stuff like that, and or just like my close friend just for living essentially, because like it's a lot of cracks as well, like how fibromyalgia is not recognized as a disability, and so my friend needs like a lot of money for copays for the pain medications like weekly, because of the pain she is in, but it's not covered by Medicaid, or it's only covered so much, and she is on like a Social Security supplemental income SSI. But that doesn't cover enough because it has to pay rent still. That's the thing. Rent's still a thing. And she's taking care of her like own child. And the system fails a lot of people like that. And she's just like one person I know. Who knows how many people out there that are homeless as well, and all around the world. So yeah.
Fibromyalgia is pernicious stuff. My wife has it. And it just lays her out, and it's she has to work to get up in the morning because she's just drained from this constant load on her.
The thing is, something that you said earlier, Lauren, about how the red states are the biggest takers, which is true, and that's the thing, the most galling to me of all, like I said before, I don't have a problem. I live in a state where we do well, and I'm doing well, and my wife's doing well, and so yeah, I don't have a problem paying taxes to help people in other places that are behind it. But then they'll sit there and say they'll decry the government, and they'll say, oh, people who are getting government assistance should get off assistance. I'm like, start with you. Look in the mirror, and I really feel like what we need to start doing is when there's natural disasters in red states, do like they did to us after Sandy happened and vote against the aid. Like, no, sorry, we're all gonna live like you want us to, or none of us. None of this bullshit of like you get to get all the benefits and then deny them to somebody else. No, we either all get them or no one gets them. Yeah. And then see how quickly they turn to the government.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't know if that's. I mean, I see your point absolutely. I don't know if I personally could follow through with something like that because, I mean, my key line is I'm glad to help, and I am glad to help because I have something to spare. Yeah. The thing is, people don't want to look at themselves. They don't want to, because they're afraid. Oh, geez, that's me.
Well, right. That's the whole point, though. You can't keep giving to somebody who constantly spits in your face. At a certain point, you have to say that's enough. Yeah. And so I actually very easily could vote against them because here's the other thing too. People in those states with the policies they have, most of them voted for that. So at a certain point, they always love to talk about personal responsibility. Well, the time to pay the piper. And the thing is, because I also say this because I also don't think it would last very long. I think basically people would go, "Oh, we need all this stuff," and then things would be different.
I'll stipulate that it needs to be done. I'll also stipulate I'd love to hear a method that's coherent and that doesn't tear us further apart than we're already torn because we're already torn like hell.
Well, what I would do is I would actually quote. I basically look in the voting record and get all the floor speeches, and I would literally take a speech from various politicians who voted against aid for New York and Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut, and I would read them verbatim, and that would be it. Like, hey, this is what.
And they'll respond, fake news.
and everyone's own custom reality.
And I would attest them, and I would say, well, you were happy with this justification before. Why aren't you now?
You took him out of context.
Yeah, you have to listen to the whole 400 minutes of. You can't because nobody knows how quotes work. It's possible to quote someone fairly. You don't have to just reprint the entire book.
Well, but that's actually the reason why I would actually read
the whole thing. Yeah,
this way. Yeah, the context is right because this is helping you and not somebody else. Well, that's why you're for it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's it. That's why Trump was all about, helping out Florida and Texas with their hurricane, but Puerto Rico could have sank into the ocean as far as he cared. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Does Puerto Rico have power back on? I don't know.
Parts. From what I understand, they do.
There are places that
there's still some areas that are out.
That don't have power.
Yeah.
But still has terrible water too, as well.
Yeah, I know. Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing I think it's starting this week or next week. He's doing a special staging of Hamilton in San Juan, I think, to raise money for it because there's still a lot left to do.
What I'd like to do is, I know a lot of people in Puerto Rico that probably would be against this, but if you can get enough of them, maybe it's like, look. Petition for statehood now, and get two more senators who'll probably never ever vote for Republican ever in their history.
I'd be all for that.
Joe, you just remind me of a Facebook picture that I reposted where it just showed a tiny blue dot of Los Angeles and then a red swath of land with Montana, Idaho, Nebraska. Yeah, 7 states. So and the thing says. These 7 states, that red swath of land, has the same population as this tiny blue dot. Yet the tiny blue dot only has 2 senators, while the big swath of land has 14 senators. Yeah, how does that make sense?
Well, and that's why I always laugh whenever after the last election, all the right-wing douchebags were posting, "Oh, see all the red?"
Oh yeah,
dumbass. Do you know how?
That's land.
Yeah,
the land doesn't vote.
Yeah, at the risk of citing Bill Maher again, we only need 1 Dakota. I love that line. And it's the truth. I mean, the whole business of senators versus representatives, I'm actually wondering at this point if it isn't, what's the word I'm looking for? If it isn't anachronistic. Yeah, there you are. Hey, see, Brett and I are such an item. He's finishing my sentences.
Yeah,
now.
I mean, basically, the population of both Dakotas together is like 1.65 million.
Yeah.
New Jersey has 4 times that actually more than 4 times that population, actually about 5 times that population, and we get 2 senators, and they got 4.
Hell, even South Carolina has more than that.
There's it's something. It was similar to the thing that some random geek was saying about the map. Someone was sharing of like an imaginary conversation between them and Thomas Jefferson, where they were saying, look, Mr. Jefferson, I know it probably made perfect sense in the 1780s when you all were drafting the Constitution, but today, I mean, it doesn't seem fair that, people who live in sparsely populated states have the same number of senators as people who live in states like California that have 40 million people. And then Jefferson's...
How many people live in California?
Jefferson's response is, first, he spits out the tea that was made for him by a slave, which I thought was a nice detail. And then he's like, 40 million people live where? You can't imagine. 40 million people? What are you talking about?
Well, here's the fucked up part. California could break into 3 states, still have more population than like 30 states.
Yeah.
And each one of them individually will still have a bigger economy than almost all the red states, except for like Texas.
Well, not necessarily, because Northern California is rather rural, and they keep wanting to split off so they can go red.
Well,
they would not have a larger economy, though.
We're talking about if they split into 3 equal populations, so they'd have to include like San Francisco and San Jose and stuff like that.
Boy, those would be some ugly states. Those wouldn't be like neat and rectangles like Colorado and the Dakotas. There would just be
come on, we have 2 Virginias and 2 Carolinas as well as 2 Dakotas. So and then just Rhode Island.
Yeah, but one Carolina has more population than North and South Dakota, and probably Montana and or Wyoming to boot.
Well, here's the thing too, as far as electoral votes. New Jersey gets 14, and the 2 Dakotas combined get 6. So we have 2.5 times the, or not quite 2.5 times the electoral votes, but 5 times the population.
Yeah.
That's why there's a few states that have like legislation in place that or legislation that's going to be passed that if the popular vote is for one candidate, and then all their electoral votes will go for the popular vote. Trying to circumvent the electoral college.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
I think it was like 10 states have signed on to that.
Yeah, they'll just their electoral votes go to whoever wins the popular vote. Yeah, the national popular vote.
That only works though if we balance red states and blue states together. They're both doing that. But
yeah, that's true.
Here's one thing though too. We're talking about the recalcitrant people on the left. There's a YouTuber. I don't know if I should say his name or not, but he basically said he was done with it all again. Doesn't matter left, right. but he wasn't going to vote.
Oh, Joe.
Yep. Okay, so it's not just me. Right in the middle of his point too.
Damn.
But what I would like to say.
Go ahead, Alice.
So we get rid of the electoral college.
Never mind.
Till we have universal health care, and until we get rid of the electoral college. I'm like, so how are you aiming to accomplish this if you're not going to vote? I mean, that's like literally that's there's a lot of things that people that are dumb. That is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. I'm not going to participate in the political process until a bunch of political things that I want happen, and I'm not going to vote for them.
Yeah, and you're going to hold your breath until you turn blue, too, aren't you, Joe?
It just has to magically happen. Okay, Alice, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, the biggest problem I have are all these people who are talking about, well, until the Democrats give me the perfect candidate, I'm not going to vote. And it's like, okay, so it's not perfect, but it's 60% perfect, which is 60% better than the other side. So why are you going for 0% of what you want?
Yeah, or like
again, we're holding your breath until you turn blue. The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Or along the same lines, there's people that are like, you know, they're like, oh well, the Democrats don't inspire me. This kind of didn't inspire me. I'm like, what are you, 5?
Human rights inspire me.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do the issues not inspire you? Why does not the, at least if not getting you know, universal health care next week, you know, isn't going to happen, but at least if we can preserve what we have so that we can then move on at a later date to something better rather than dismantling what we had gotten, you know, the gain we made and go back and regress. So I'm kind of like, how, you know, why does the environmental issues not motivate you? Why don't LGBT issues motivate you? Women's rights and body autonomy and minority and immigration, all the things we've been talking about. Why don't they, you know, why isn't that motivation enough?
Because if it were motivation, they might have to act.
Well, it's very egocentric. It's like, I need to be excited about something or I'm not going to do it. Well, then basically my attitude is then shut the fuck up about all those issues, because clearly you don't care enough about them to actually do something about it. So I don't care what your opinion is anymore. You've removed yourself from relevancy. So just if you're fine with the way things are, then shut the fuck up. Or actually, Tracy Harris has been going one step further. She's like, oh well, then you should vote for Republican then. And they're like, oh no, I don't like the Republicans. No, well, you said the Democrats aren't good enough, so vote for the Republicans if that's what you like. Because that's what's going to happen if you don't vote. You might as well vote for them.
Oh, they're voting for a third party. Yeah. There's always that.
Hey, Jill Stein is relevant and cares.
Wait. He's still doing a recount. 1, 2,
in Florida.
She's still doing the recount. Yeah, I mean, well, talking about like, I want a candidate who inspires me. Like, I completely get that, and it's the reason why I loved Obama as much as I did, and still do. Because he was an inspiring candidate. He's a great writer. He's a great speaker. He's a very inspiring figure. Looking back on his 8 years, I mean, even though I long for them, especially compared to what we have now, like
even though there's some problems with his 8 years,
big problems. There are big problems with those 8 years, and one of the problems that I look back on is, you know, he was inspiring, and that was great, but I wish that he had gotten down and cracked some more skulls. Mm-hmm. You know, because like, it's great to be able to inspire the base like he did, but as I mentioned a little while ago, if the people who you're against are just going to show you no respect, at a certain point you have to stop extending to them that which they are not giving you, and just say, okay, if this is the way you want to do it, then let's brawl.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem of where we're at. I think there were a lot of people who were very pro Obama and very excited, and then they didn't, you know, he wasn't able to deliver everything that they wanted. Yeah. So they've gotten jaded. Again,
disillusioned.
I can understand people that are like my age. I'm going to be 50 in a few days. So I can understand being my age and being jaded by the whole thing. But like people in their early 20s, I'm like, dude, what the fuck do you have to be jaded about? You just got here.
You just wait.
If you're jaded now, you're never going to make it to 50.
Things are going to get so much worse.
Yeah, it's all the millennials' fault, right?
Joe, I'm a month and some change away from being 68, and based upon what you sound like, I don't think you got a damn thing to worry about. You and I are both on fire. I'm still plenty pissed off, and
Thank you.
And I mean, I don't see any reason to let up, and I'm not going to.
I want to respond real quick to something that Alice just said. Now, as far as the millennials go, no, is it all the millennials? No, of course not. However, I hold them in higher contempt than us, because and not so exactly. I don't uniquely hold them in contempt. I just hold them in higher contempt than I do other groups. You know, the reason why is and this is something I got in a little mix up with Latham Way last week about something I posted. Now, it's very easy to point to bad shit that baby boomers have done. I'm with you. Yeah, they did a lot of bad shit. And my generation didn't do a lot. Although part of the problem for us is that we're the smallest generation. We're literally outnumbered 2-1 by both baby boomers and millennials. So we were just never large enough of a group to be significant. But yeah, when we were younger, I mean, I was always active, but a lot of us weren't. The difference today is that younger people are more aware. They have the tools. They pay attention. They love to talk about how they're more LGBT friendly. They're more on board with women's rights and all these things, and that's true and that's awesome. But if you're more aware and then you still do nothing, I do hold that in lower regard. It's kind of like the people who when Europeans attacked the Americans for about the fact that we had slavery longer than they did. It's like, well, right, when your country's outlawed slavery, and then citizens of your country continue to engage in the trade, because where do you think that a lot of the slaves were coming from once they were outlawed here? There were a lot of look at the Amistad, that's foreign ship, So basically, so what I look at it is, if someone does something bad and because they're ignorant, that's a bad thing. I don't give them a pass. But if someone is not ignorant and they still do the bad thing or don't do the right thing, that bothers me more. So, so the ability of millennials to organize, to find out how to get things done and do, and they have at times, but it doesn't. It never seems to equate to votes. So, but
it does though.
The best thing.
It's all their fault, right?
Well, they share more culpability, and just like everybody else who did the wrong thing.
I certainly have an opinion here as well.
But so for instance, the Occupy Wall Street was a great thing, and that was largely millennials, and I give them that's probably the best thing the millennials ever did. It probably will be the best thing they ever did. And unfortunately, people in my generation and Lauren's generation didn't give that as much credence as they should have.
Well, it was largely an impotent act.
Well, right, but that's the problem, because basically everyone was there for the rallies and everyone was there for the protesting, and no one showed up to fucking vote. So if Occupy Wall Street had turned into Occupy Congress, it could have been a true political movement that would have moved mountains. It would have dwarfed what the Tea Party did, but yet it fell aside, and that's what I'm angry about.
I have to disagree with you a bit because yes, millennials vote less than baby boomers and such, but they vote in their age group more than any other generation did in that same age group.
Actually, that's not true.
Okay.
Not true. No, the millennial turnout in the last general election was in the 30s, and now remember too, half of millennials are 30 or over. So it's not like that they're all like everyone keeps thinking millennials are teeny boppers and 20-year-olds. No, that's
I'm a teeny bopper.
So the youngest millennial.
We invented teeny boppers, so
right.
Don't go there.
Let's not get sidetracked by this teeny bopper issue.
The youngest millennials now are like 22. So this idea that they're just kids and they don't know better, that shit has to end. So that's the thing. So my thing is that, and also here's the other thing: white millennials vote actually very poorly. They're about split. About half of them vote conservative, half of them vote liberal. It's non-white millennials who vote in droves for liberal causes. So white millennials. So I guess I'll fix my statement. I have a big problem with white millennials.
So okay, now I really have to jump in. Okay, so
standing up for white people, huh?
Defend yourself, white millennial.
As a white millennial,
but not exclusively. They don't.
I know what you mean, Joe. I know what you mean. It's the same as any statement. It's general, not 100%. But I mean, that being said, I think seeing the people I know who are in my age group who have decided to vote and who have decided not to vote. Almost every single one I know that has decided to vote is voting liberal, but that's just because of the circle that we're in. Now, almost every single one that's decided not to vote is also liberal, but they bought into that story they've been told since they were very, very young, which is voting doesn't matter. Your vote doesn't mean anything. You're one vote in millions and millions of votes, and it's not going to count. I have a buddy who is not going to vote, who is self-medicating with marijuana because he obviously in the state he lives in, it's not legal to get even for medical purposes. So he just self-medicates. And there's some other fucking issue that he's trying to legalize. But the point is that he has all these liberal ideals, but he won't vote because he's like, oh, my vote is not going to matter.
And I have contempt for him then.
I understand that, and I keep on telling him you got to go vote, man. Like if you want things, you need to vote. And he's not.
We should do more than voting.
He's been inundated in that lie since he was a child.
Right,
and so have I, but I've learned that it's bullshit.
But think about, okay, like how many people on the left that won't vote because they're angry that Bernie wasn't the candidate for president?
Yeah.
And okay, the turnout in the primary was 15%. It was actually lower than normal. So basically, if the people who liked Bernie showed up in droves, he would have been the candidate.
I'm not sure about that.
Yes, that's true. I don't want to hear this bullshit. Oh, it was rigged. No, it was bullshit. The voting is controlled by the state's boards of elections, not by the DNC. If people showed up to vote, they could have voted, and they just chose not to.
But it's exactly like Occupy Wall Street. People did that because they thought voting wasn't going to work. I mean, I think this is a problem that is pandemic in millennials, especially. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
I just want to agree with you. I kind of go along with that. I think that's a really good point. I don't think it doesn't excuse anything, and I don't think you're saying it should excuse anything, but it explains maybe why there is so much apathy, especially among certain segments of a younger voting population. Like, if I could go back in time and just rewrite one bit of popular culture that people my age grew up on, I would grab George Carlin and drag him into a corner and say, don't tell people not to vote.
Right.
Because, or don't tell people that it doesn't matter. Because I don't know if George Carlin ever came out and said, don't vote, but he frequently, in his act and when he was interviewed, he used to make a joke. Well, I don't vote because if I voted, I would have no right to complain, which is a funny line because it inverts that, the usual line. But that's a terrible message to tell people. And people lionize Carlin, and not without reason, because Carlin was a genius. But when a guy that you think of as a genius comes out on stage and says, don't vote because voting is for suckers, right. That does leave an impression. And if I could get rid of that, I would love to get rid of that.
I agree with you. And here's the one thing, and here's the worst part about that, Steve, is I don't even think he actually believed it. Because
no, I don't think he did either.
Because here's why. During the 2004 election cycle, George Carlin went on Bill Maher, and they were talking about the upcoming election, and then Carlin started talking about Kerry's chances, and he seemed enthusiastic about Kerry's chances to win. So clearly, he cared. He was basically a curmudgeon who was bitter, and he didn't. It was almost like he didn't want to let people know that he still cared because it would make him vulnerable, and he just wanted to be like, fuck it all. It's easy. And I get angry too whenever I see people like I'll tell you what. There's part of me that says if the election doesn't go well, I'm kind of like fuck it, because I got money and I'm in a liberal state. I'm not likely to be target of violence. Well, I'm not too likely to be target of violence. And so I can probably live out my life and get by. But so there's a part of me that just says, yeah, fuck everybody. But I don't really believe that. It's just I'm angry and bitter.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, and I agree with Brett that that's what's seeped into people's minds. But I kind of have to ask millennials, like, you have all the information in the history of humanity at your fingertips, and you're way better at accessing it than people in my generation or Lauren's generation. Way better. So
and you're wasting it.
And you're wasting it, exactly.
It's just like Lauren said.
All of human history and knowledge in your pocket, and you waste it. Now, no one on this.
We have to work 2 jobs in order to make ends meet sometimes.
Because you people are definitely on top of it. I accept you for my.
I would people.
Yes, you people.
What do you mean, you people?
I don't want to.
Well, I didn't want to say guys because I didn't know if that was. Yeah. That Alex, I'm not trying to be gender. I'm not trying to do gender specific. So I was. What else do I say? You person.
Steve, I take it one step further.
Go ahead.
The same people who are not voting are almost certainly not, raising hell with their Congress people or their representatives or whatever have you. I'll guarantee you that.
That's what we need to do.
Sherrod Brown knows my name. I'll bet. Right. In fact, he's answered me on at least 2 different occasions regarding issues I brought up to him. Rob Portman, I don't know. I mean, I think Rob Portman, he could be Rob Zombie for all I know, because, he doesn't respond to anything except with the corporate line. And Marcia Fudge is just wonderful. She's a neat lady. But the point is, here I am. I'm an old fogey who's making himself known and making a point of making himself known every time, that's something, raises my hackles. And I don't know what I don't quite get what the mindset is with the millennials. I can tell you my daughter isn't, one of them. I mean, hell, she's involved in media one way or the other. So, she's got to be informed. And I'll guarantee you she votes.
Yeah.
But I don't, the whole vote doesn't count. Business may account for some of it. But I wonder if a lot of it isn't just, self-involvement and ennui.
If I could build on something you said earlier, Lauren, you said, I think it was you. You said one of the most important things that we can do is stop trying to reach towards the right and stop trying to reach toward the middle, and just tell the people who are already on the left to vote.
Yeah.
Like that is probably the best thing that
we need to do more than voting. Voting is not enough in this system.
Yes,
that's what we got to do. And one thing is, like, the Occupy Wall Street did have an effect on some millennials, because basically that was like the first point where they got radicalized and moved towards closer to the far left, where I am an anarchist, and join resistance movements, or like became anarchists and join mutual aid societies, or join organizations like Food Not Bombs and stuff like that. And I think part of the reason why some millennials, like white millennials or other millennials, do not vote or feel not vote or feel disenfranchised that way, sometimes, let's be fair, are the working class represented by the politicians that are in office?
Not enough, no.
Yeah. And there are some barriers to that of working class people being politicians, because they have to take time off from their jobs and maybe their family life too in order to run. And then once they're in office or in like organizations, volunteer organizations, not-for-profits, elites generally recruit other elites. They don't recruit other working class peoples. And so there's that problem too. That's an unseen problem.
What was that window you explained? Because I can't remember it. Lauren, it was like
the Overton window.
The Overton window.
Yes, because that's where it matters the most. The reason the Democratic Party got where it got, because they were losing, and they saw the Republicans win, and they said, "Well, all right, so that's what because that's who showed up to vote." So they say, "Well, that's what the country wants." So we'll have to be more like that in order to win. Of course, that doesn't work, because then what ends up happening is people say, well, shit, if I have a choice between Republican and Republican light, I'll go for the full-blown Republican. But again, it's kind of a feedback loop. It's a negative feedback loop where people get, these guys didn't do enough, so I won't vote for them. And then it doesn't present the message that you think it is. That's why I told a lot of people even before the election, this idea that, well, we'll show them because we won't show up, and then they'll learn. They're going to learn, and they're not going to learn the lesson you think they will.
Yeah. Well, if I may insert just one further statement regarding the whole issue of voting. Hello, pretty putty cat. It is not just you've got to vote, you've got to be involved. Yeah. And I that's a big ask. I know in this day and age, people want to, they want to just sort of and do their thing, which is yet another invention of the 60s and, the Summer of Love and all of that. But the blunt end of the stick is if you're armed, there's this wonderful quote from Steve. I don't know if you remember 1965 Mirage. There was Gregory Peck, Diane Baker. Yeah, it's a neat mystery sort of thing. And there's this line towards the end that Gregory Peck delivers with enormous passion. He says, "Commit. If you're not committed, you're just taking up space."
Very true. I just want to say one thing quickly in defense of millennials, because I'm I am an elder millennial. I was born in 1980, so I'm one of the old millennials. I'm either super young Gen X or super old millennial, and I can pick and choose. Like when you're born, on the boundary of a zodiac sign. I can be whichever. Yeah, exactly.
Pick a side, Steve. Come on.
I can be whatever I want.
Get radicalized.
No, don't pick it. You can choose multiple sides. I like on the gender spectrum. It's a spectrum, just like
I'm on the generational spectrum.
He's on the generational cohort spectrum.
All generations matter, huh?
There's good people on all sides.
That was the cat's chair. You stole the cat's chair. I'm enjoying watching that.
I agree with a lot of what Joe says, and I do agree. Every generation is unique, and every generation has its own unique qualities and characteristics and distractions. Everybody has to live in the time that they're born. So I'm not trying to say that like every generation is the same as every other generation, because that's obviously not true. But I always sort of try to stop myself when I get to the point of saying you know, oh, these young people today. You know what I mean? Because young people 30 years ago certainly were not exactly the same as young people today. But I imagine that people my age were thinking similar thoughts about young people 30 years ago. You know what I mean? I think every generation is, you know, what the problem is these young people don't realize how good they've got it, or these young people don't want to pull their weight, or these young people don't want to, you know, pitch in, and they, you know, they won't vote. They don't want to work. They don't want to blah, blah, blah. And I
never
like
had a cell phone at that age.
Right.
Newspapers lousy. Our society. Everybody's just reading newspapers.
I think the idea to obviously I would love for millennials to vote more than they do. I would love for millennials to get involved more than they do. I should be more involved than I am. I don't call my congressman or senator as often as I should. I kind of sit back on my heels because I'm. Yeah, well, and because mine are Democrats in Congress, I mean, at the federal level. So I'm just like, oh, they're good, but I probably shouldn't be like that. I should engage. I should push. I should be like, hey, you know, and especially with my state representatives who are fucking shit, who are Republicans and are just garbage. I mean, they should be hearing from me a lot more than they are. So I put myself in that. Yeah. But it's not a unique. Yeah. But it's not a unique thing. You know, I feel like it's a little unfair for people my age and older to sort of look at millennials today and say, yeah, you know, they're millennials, you know.
We kind of have it harder economically compared to baby boomers.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Now, first of all, I want to say, I want to acknowledge some random guy for his activism. Going out and canvassing, because that is awesome, because most people don't do that. I've actually done it, but it's been a long time, and I'm like, at this point, I'm physically unable to do it. But yes, you stand out, and so even though you and I disagree a lot on a lot of political stuff, I love you.
And Last Jedi too,
because you're out there, you know, doing it, and that's you know, because you're right, because that's, I think that was the problem to me when I look at the Obama years. I see a lot of people who they voted for Obama and then basically sat back and said, okay, hope and change, make the hope and change. And you're right, Steve. People need, part of the reason why we didn't get a public option is because during the healthcare debate, the right wing, the Tea Party people were on the phone, all the representatives, and we weren't. We weren't there, and we weren't there saying, yes, we have to have that public option. And because
thank you, Koch brothers.
So basically, when the Democratic, those representatives, those Democratic representatives, their phones weren't blowing up telling them, you got to go out there and you got to push and make sure we get a public option. They said, well, people don't seem to be that up for it, so I'm not going to spend the political capital. I'm not going to stake my career on it because I'm not seeing to get a lot of support on it. So I'll let it slide, and that's what we got. So people they were really expecting magic out of Obama, and you know he was great, but he does not have magic powers. So
clearly,
as it comes to the whole business of quote kids today, Plato was complaining about that 2,000 years ago. So, I mean, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And you know that quote. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So people who complain about young people are just doing what Plato did.
Yeah. So I do acknowledge that as far as, you know, we shouldn't be unfair in our criticisms,
right?
Because that isn't right, and certainly. And I do get annoyed when people try to make it out like millennials are the only problem. Like, well, no. Yeah. I guess I kind of feel about millennials the way George Carlin felt about baby boomers, because George Carlin was from the silent generation, and he identified more with the baby boomers at the time because they used to be very liberal.
Yeah.
They're the ones who protested the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
But they basically sold out those things for pasta machines and soybean futures, as Carlin liked to say. So
power up.
So
I don't own a pasta machine, and I hate fava beans.
Yeah. So I kind of look at millennials as the potential to be far greater than we ever were.
I'm working on it.
Missing their opportunity.
Yeah, the potential is still there, though. Yeah, I mean, some of them are, I'll say this: the millennials who are involved in the political process give me a great deal of hope.
Yeah,
I wish there was a larger group, but yeah, the people who are younger than me, who are doing way more than I am currently doing as just a dipshit who makes YouTube videos, to push things forward and fight for people's rights. Like I take great inspiration from them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hey, at least Steve, you at least make YouTube videos. I haven't done that in 4 weeks.
Well, and that's real quick, Steve, and that's actually
please let's not make that the standard.
Yeah, I do feel bad. I do feel bad about the need.
What have you done for me lately, some random guy?
You don't even make YouTube videos.
I do feel bad about the need to make general statements about millennials, because I do recognize there are, like you said, there are some people doing some great things. It's just there's not enough of them.
Yeah.
And so I can understand people who are the ones who are active and are doing things getting insulted. Like, well, it's hard for me to differentiate, without getting into 8,000 disclaimers. It's hard to make my point without, unfortunately, casting a wide net. So
unfortunately, I'm just not Thomas Smith. I can't do 1,000 things at once.
Oh my God!
Like he's got 10 podcasts. I'm like trying to write and do my job
and take care
of my family.
Yeah, and the most adorable baby in the world. No disrespect to any other babies, but Thomas's
baby
kid
opening
is like
argument.
Oh, Steve, jeez, look at this face.
Hey, by the way,
looking at that face.
You're not baby opening.
you're not baby opening arguments. Don't even try. Anyway, but speaking of some random geek, we're gonna wrap this up here in a minute. But did you want to mention Joanna's PayPal before we go off?
Yeah. I'm on my phone right now, so I can't really post a link into the Hangout live chat. But once this goes up as a video and able to post comments, I will post a comment to my friend, my close friend, the one I mentioned about who has fibromyalgia and is taking care of is a single mother basically. I'm gonna put her her link to her Tumblr, because she has to do this monthly. She puts out a begging bowl, asking for donations from people in order to be able to pay for co-pays and pay for groceries and pay for all those things. And so I have contributed to it as often as I can. And so I will put a link into the comments below to the Tumblr post and to the PayPal link and stuff like that. Yeah. So people, if $5, even $10, even that much is great. And if you can't do that, you can at least share it around on your social media so that the bowl gets passed around. So yeah, thank you.
I'll add it to the video description too once we're off the air.
Oh,
so
can I make a request of the millennials on the panel? No, this is a positive thing. This is a positive thing, because ultimately, what I see, the people who aren't voting, I think it's even beyond the fact that they don't think it matters, is that they don't see how they are tied in any way to the consequences of what happens. So, because I've seen so many people, they keep telling me well, you are going to lose and the Democrats are going to lose. I'm like, well, to me, I see it as everybody who shares leftist values is going to lose if we don't win, they don't win the election. So, I guess that's one thing that I, as an old Gen Xer, that where I fail is I don't know how to get the point across that they have a stake in the outcome without. And how can I do that in a way that gets the point across, but isn't hostile or insulting?
Joe, may I take a crack at it? Joe, if just taking a crack at it, we've talked about choosing to vote Democrat or choosing to vote Republican or whatever have you. There's a third choice, just to surely. I mean, I'm thinking of Matt Dillahunty and saying, is God guilty of existing or innocent of existing or not guilty of existing? There's that third choice, which is not acting. And like it or not, that's a choice. And that is the choice that too many of them are opting for, and it's a bad choice.
Right.
This is a political position.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes. It is. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that a lot of them express it to me as though doing that leaves there's no consequences for them by doing that. And
except that there is.
And except that there is, and how to convince them of that there is in a way that they would possibly accept.
You have to fight against alienation, unfortunately.
I'm at a loss. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Well,
there's a lot of alienation with the millennials and the next generation as well. But I'll stop talking now.
I just want to say I'm gonna wrap this up because we've been over an hour, and this is obviously our last hangout before election day here in the United States. So anybody watching this, if you are a registered voter in the United States,
I already voted.
If you haven't already voted, if you have early voting in your state, then vote whatever you want. But
I'm mailing mine in today.
Vote early, vote often.
Sometime between now and election day, please vote. For the love of everything, please go vote. Vote for the most progressive candidates that you can on your ballot.
Oh, jeez. Steve, you just triggered me. Do you remember the first family, Warren Meader, and the things the shtick that they used to do about the Kennedys? Did you ever hear any of that?
I might have heard a little bit of it a while ago, yeah, but I'm not super familiar with it.
Next Tuesday is election day. Go to the polls and vote. Vote for the Kennedy of your choice, but vote!
Vote for the Kennedy of your choice. There you go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go vote.